Hello and welcome to Relatable Code. In this video, we're going to talk about enums in Kotlin. So let's get started. So let me first show you the problem. I feel that this approach is better for you so that you can first know why we need this type of functionality. And this is what I've been basically using in my videos. Okay, so let me first show you why we need enums before explaining what they are. Okay, let's say here I want to define my genre like this. Let's say it's science fiction. And our book class in our main method will take this genre for this parameter. Okay. Now, I want to do some certain check for the genre of my book so that I can print out a certain statement. Okay. So I can write when book dot genre, for example, science fiction, print line, this is a science fiction book. Okay, until now this is fine. But what if you need this functionality somewhere else in your code, but for some reason, instead of writing science fiction like that, you write science fiction like this, or like this, for example. This check will no longer work, okay, because you're checking for what's called a hard-coded string, okay? You're checking for a string that has to exactly match this sequence of characters, which will produce a lot of problems because it's very easy to make a typo when working with code. Okay? And that's basically where enums come to the help, because enums provide you with a set of predefined constants so that you can avoid problems like this, basically. So let me show you how to create an enum. It's very easy. You can do it like this. You would write enum class like that, and you will write genre or whatever you want your enum to represent, basically. Okay, let's say here I have fiction, science fiction, sayekni, uh, fantasy, for example. Okay, now in our book data class, instead of expecting a string for our genre, we would now expect our enum, okay, which is this genre. So in our main method, instead of having genre equals to science fiction like that, you would write genre equals to genre dot science fiction. Okay, this is now a constant. So here, our genre is now science fiction. And when you want to check for this genre, basically, you would check for book dot genre for genre dot science fiction, just like that. Okay. And in addition to basically providing a predefined constant that you can work with, check this inside your when statement. You can check for fiction, for science fiction, and for fantasy as well. This is a fiction book, this is a science fiction book, and this is a fantasy book. And if you notice, I no longer have an error at my when statement, which means I don't have to define an else statement. Why? Because our genre, which is an enum in this case, can only be either fiction or science fiction or fantasy. Okay? You've declared that it can only be one of these three types, which means that when in your code you're trying to check for this genre, you only have to check for these three types. You don't have to handle any other case. Okay? And that's the true power of enums in Kotlin. Now, what you can also do with enums, you can actually provide some properties and functions for this enum class. Okay? I'll show you how in a bit. You can just open these parentheses and write, for example, val description string, just like that. Okay, and now I have an error because every single basically enum for this genre should have a definition for this description. Okay, let's provide that. Let's say this is a basically fiction book. Same goes for our science fiction and our fantasy books. Let's just copy this sentence. This will do fine. And this will do fine as well. Okay. Now we can check for this genre through print line book.genre.description. Okay, which basically just does this. Let's comment that out. Let's remove our book.toDTO. We don't need that for now. And everything looks good. Let's run our function again. And as you can see, this is a science fiction book because it was indeed a science fiction enum. If this was a fantasy book or a fantasy genre for my book, it would be a fantasy book, just like that. Okay? And that was the true power of enums in Kotlin. Okay, just keep in mind that if you want to provide some properties like this, they have to be static. Okay? You can't actually change these at runtime, which means that as soon as your code compiles, this is the description for your fiction genre, and this is the description for your science fiction genre. Okay, just keep in mind that these will not change, and you can only use these if you are sure that this description will always remain the same for this genre, and this genre, and this one as well. Okay, for each of their descriptions. And that's about it. If you find my content to be relatable, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next video.